"Sir, the lounge is for real customers only," the receptionist said, her tone clipped, curt, and coated with condescension. Her eyes barely lifted from her manicured fingernails as she dismissed him without hesitation. Howard Bell sat in the corner of the glossy showroom, his posture upright, calm, and almost regal despite his modest flannel shirt and well-worn boots. He was 75 years old, a retired Army signalman who had served in Vietnam through the worst of it, maintaining field communications under mortar fire, bridging chaos with clarity when a clear voice over radio could mean the difference between life and death. That experience had ingrained in him a kind of patience modern life no longer recognized. He didn't flinch at the receptionist's tone. He simply nodded, slightly, as if it wasn't worth the trouble to correct her. He'd been sitting quietly for 40 minutes, invisible. No greetings, no offers of help, no coffee. Salesmen walked past him like he was a potted plant or a smudge on the floor there, but irrelevant. The showroom hummed with activity. Keyboards clacked, polished shoes squeaked against the tiles. Someone laughed too loud about a golf score. In the middle of it, Howard waited. He wasn't there for anything fancy, just a reliable used car. Something to get him to his VA clinic, his grocery runs, and his weekly volunteer shifts at the VFW Hall, where he helped younger veterans navigate the bureaucratic gauntlet of accessing the benefits they'd earned in uniform. He'd been saving for years. Not because he didn't have the money, his pension was steady, his house was paid off, but because old habits from wartime die hard. Save everything. Waste nothing. That morning, his neighbor Frank had offered him a ride, and now here he was, tucked into a seat by the showroom's coffee station, surrounded by glossy posters of new vehicles and sales jargon about APR rates and executive editions. He watched the world move around him, patiently, steadily, with the quiet dignity of someone used to being overlooked. Finally, the receptionist approached again. "This area is for customers, sir," she repeated, with more pointed emphasis on the last word. "I'm here to buy a car," Howard said, his voice calm but clear. He wasn't angry. Not yet. Just firm, as if stating a fact. She scanned him, head-to-toe faded jeans, hands lined with age, boots polished but clearly decades old. She blinked slowly. "Someone will help you." Eventually, the pause hung in the air like a slur. She turned and walked off. Howard didn't react. He folded his hands over his knees and resumed waiting. He remembered long nights on hilltops with nothing but static and darkness. He'd learned then that time passed whether you rushed it or not. Inside a glass-walled office, 3 salesmen leaned around a desk, laughing. "He's been there forever," one said, sipping his latte. "Probably just here for the free coffee," another added. "You think he even drives anymore?" A third snickered. Maybe he wandered in from the shelter. None of them knew who he was. None of them cared. From across the lot, a younger salesman named Greg noticed. He'd been walking toward the showroom with a clipboard in hand when he paused at the window and caught sight of the old man sitting quietly alone, still waiting. Something about the scene sat wrong with him. "Hey," Greg said, stepping inside and addressing one of the sales managers. "You sure that guy's not actually here to buy?" The manager chuckled, didn't look up. "I've been doing this 20 years. You don't make commission off ghosts. He's wasting your time, trust me." Greg didn't argue, but the seed of discomfort stayed with him. Inside, Howard pulled out a worn notebook from his shirt pocket. He flipped to a page half filled with clean, blocky handwriting and antenna sketches, diagrams, and notes from his service days. "No voice unheard, no signal lost," read a quote in the corner. He smiled softly at the memory. The notebook had been with him through jungle rains, desert winds, and now the slow erasure of old age. Then, without warning, the glass doors of the front of the dealership burst open. A tall, broad-shouldered man stepped through the threshold like a storm front. His charcoal gray suit was tailored. His posture was pure military, a spine that looked incapable of bending. He carried himself with the gravity of someone who had once commanded men through fire and fear. "Sergeant Howard Bell," the man's voice boomed across the showroom. Every head turned. Salesmen froze. The receptionist's eyes widened. Greg stepped back. The man strode across the floor like he owned the place because, in a way, he did. Colonel Thomas Dent, Howard said with a stunned chuckle, rising from his seat slowly. You're a hard man to find, Dent said, before enveloping him in a full embrace, like one brother welcoming another home from war. You know him? The receptionist stammered, her tone radically different now. Know him? Dent's voice dropped. This man saved my life. Twice. Once with his radio, when our outpost was about to be overrun, and again when he dragged me through jungle brush with a bullet in his own shoulder. And you made him wait here 40 minutes? The silence that followed was volcanic. The general manager stepped out from his office, eyes scanning the room in confusion. Sir, we didn't realize. No, Dent cut him off. You didn't ask. That's the problem. He pulled out his phone and made a single call. No raised voices. Just curt, efficient instructions. 15 minutes later, 2 men in suits arrived, lawyers or investors. It wasn't clear. They walked straight into the manager's office. While Howard and Dent caught up over fresh coffee the receptionist now scrambled to make, the dealership transformed in real time. By the time Dent stepped back into the center of the showroom, everyone was gathered and waiting. Effective immediately, he announced, I've purchased a controlling stake in this dealership. The room fell dead silent. A salesman dropped his mug. It shattered. First order of business, Dent continued. Sergeant Bell gets any car he wants. No payments. No forms. That's the least we can do for a man who kept hundreds of soldiers alive. He turned to Howard. Pick your ride, Sergeant. Howard looked down, visibly flustered. I don't need anything fancy. Just something dependable. Then you'll get the most dependable vehicle we've got. That's an order, Dent said with a smile. Greg stepped forward. Sir, he said, his voice cracking slightly, if it's okay. I'd be honored to help, Mr. Bell choose. Howard smiled, his eyes warm. Let's do it together, son. By the next day, word had spread. The story made it onto veteran forums, into newspaper headlines, across social media. Forgotten soldier ignored at dealership rescued by former commander who buys the whole business. Photos surfaced of Dent and Bell standing beside a gleaming new truck. The lot's name changed overnight. The new sign read, Bell and Dent Motors, built on brotherhood. The next morning, Howard returned, this time behind the wheel of a brand new pickup, American flag decal glinting on the back window. He parked in the same spot, walked in the same door. But everything had changed. Staff stood. They greeted him by name. Greg handed him a cup of coffee, just the way he liked it. Cream and 1 sugar, right? He asked around. The receptionist, now in training for customer relations, nodded respectfully from her new post. Her face was different too. Not just embarrassed. Changed. As Howard prepared to leave, a young man in a worn military jacket stepped forward from the crowd of customers. Sir, he said quietly, I saw the story. Thank you for what you did then, and what you reminded everyone of yesterday. Howard nodded, resting a hand on the young man's shoulder. No voice unheard, he said softly. Those words were later engraved in bronze behind the new reception desk, catching the sunlight every morning. They became more than a motto. They became a promise. Bell and Dent Motors wasn't just a dealership anymore. It became a symbol. A place where service was respected, where humility wasn't ignored, and where judgment had learned its most powerful lesson. Never assume someone's worth based on what you see. Because some heroes don't arrive with medals on their chest. Some sit quietly in corners, waiting for someone to simply listen.